You know those places you see marked on a map, like way out there? Those spots that still seem kind of shrouded in mystery, the ones where the world as we know it just sort of fades away? There's something really magnetic about that, right? But what happens when that urge to explore, to see what's hidden, crashes into boundaries that are drawn to safeguard really fragile ways of life?
It's that clash, between that drive to see and do everything, that individual ambition, and the really essential need to protect those communities that have chosen, or maybe just exist in, a state of isolation. It
Sure.
makes you think it's not just about breaking some rule, it goes way deeper. It's about how we travel, our responsibilities as travelers, respecting boundaries. Those things matter.
Big time. And there's this recent incident out in a far corner of India that really throws a spotlight on that very question. You might have caught bits and pieces of it in the news, but we're going to dive deep into it.
It's worth the deep dive for sure.
Absolutely. So we're talking about Mikhailo Viktorovich Playakov, this 24-year-old American YouTuber who got himself detained in India.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he's from Scottsdale, Arizona, runs this YouTube channel with a neo-Orientalist vibe, all about what he calls extreme travel. Over 2,000 subscribers, so he's got an audience. Seems like his quest for, well, unique content took him somewhere he really, really shouldn't have been.
That word extreme, man, it takes on a whole new meaning when you look at it in this situation.
Totally. I mean, when we zoom out a bit, you can see Polyakov's actions were kind of tapping into this whole trend of people wanting these super off the beaten path travel experiences. But then this incident, it forces us to stop and ask, where's that line? The one between adventurous exploration and actions that could have some serious consequences for other people.
Right, where's that line where it goes too far?
Exactly. So, for you listening, our mission here in this deep dive is to unpack all of this. What went down, why India has such strict rules in this particular region, and what this whole thing tells us about traveling responsibly, engaging with different cultures in an ethical way, and the absolute necessity of protecting isolated communities like the one at the center of this story. We've gone through news reports, dug into travel advisories, the whole 9 yards, to bring you the essential details.
And, it's important to remember this isn't just some isolated event. What happened here raises a question for anyone who travels, all of us. How do we navigate these really sensitive cultural landscapes with respect and awareness? How do we do it right?
Okay, so let's break it down. What actually happened? Officially, the date of Polyakov's detention was March 31st, 2025, in India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands. But he actually trespassed onto North Sentinel Island illegally a couple days earlier, on March 29th, around 10 a.m. local time. I mean, can you even imagine making that kind of journey knowing it's forbidden?
And it's the way he reportedly got there that speaks volumes. An inflatable boat with an outboard motor, and that takes effort. It points to a deliberate choice to reach the island, dodging the usual routes, almost certainly knowing about the restrictions in place. This wasn't some accidental drift onto the shore.
And the report suggests it wasn't just some spur-of-the-moment thing either. There's talk of him scouting the place out beforehand. He wasn't just wandering around and, oh, there's the island.
Wow, so there was premeditation. That changes things. It implies he knew where the island was, probably that it was protected, and that raises some big questions about why he did it. Was it just to get footage for his channel? Or was there something, I don't know, more calculated, even if it was misguided?
So he gets to the northeastern shore of North Sentinel Island. And apparently, he doesn't try to directly interact with the people there. But get this, he leaves them what he calls gifts, a can of Diet Coke, and a coconut. Seriously. He collects some sand samples, films everything with a GoPro, and even reportedly claims, unofficially, to represent the U.S. I mean, the layers here are just, I don't even know what to say.
The gifts thing is so bizarre, right? Like, Diet Coke and a coconut. That says a lot about a lack of understanding of a culture that's have virtually no contact with the modern world. Those things are meaningless to them, and who knows, potentially even harmful. And the sand samples, the filming, it all points to wanting to document, to show off. And then that claim about representing the U.S., man, that's a whole other level of problematic behavior to this.
Unbelievable. Okay, so how did he finally get caught?
Well, local fishermen spotted him on his way back to Port Blair, the main port in the Andamans. That's a good distance, by the way, like 750 miles east of mainland India.
Wow, 750 miles. He went pretty far out there.
Yeah. They reported him, which led to his arrest on March 31st. It's interesting how it was local fishermen who noticed him. That shows how important local knowledge is, how the people who live in these areas are really key to upholding these protections. They saw him, recognized he shouldn't be there, and did the right thing by reporting it.
Right, so he's in custody now.
Yeah.
What kind of legal trouble is he looking at? This is obviously way more serious than just a parking ticket.
Oh, for sure. Indian law is crystal clear on this.
Yeah.
You can't go within 3 nautical miles of North Sentinel Island. Full stop. This has been in effect since 1956. The island's a protected tribal reserve. The main reasons are to protect the Sentinelese people from diseases, which they have zero immunity to, and to make sure their way of life, their isolation, is safeguarded.
Makes sense. Keep them safe, respect their isolation.
Exactly. And this designation as a protected tribal reserve under Indian law, it goes beyond just barring entry. It puts a responsibility on the government to actively protect the Sentinelese and prevent any outside interference. And these exclusion zones, they're not unique to India. They're a common practice around the world to shield vulnerable groups and environments. It's a global thing, recognizing the need for these safeguards.
So it's serious business. What about the penalties for breaking these rules? It's not just a slap on the wrist.
Oh, no, not even close. Under Indian law, you're looking at up to 8 years in prison for violating these rules. They don't mess around. After Polyakov was arrested, he was brought before a local court in order to be held in judicial custody for 14 days. His next court date is April 17th, 2025. He could be sentenced to up to 5 years in prison and have to pay a hefty fine.
5 years, that's serious time. It shows how much India prioritizes these protections. It's not a light matter to cross those boundaries around North Sentinel Island.
Not at all. And to really get why these laws are so strict, we need to know a bit about the island itself and the Sentinelese people. Like we said, it's in the Bay of Bengal, part of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And here's an interesting tidbit. It's about the size of Manhattan.
Wait, seriously, that's crazy. A whole island off limits the size of Manhattan? That puts it in perspective.
Right. It's this clearly marked no-go zone with that 3-mile exclusion radius we talked about. And the main reason, as we've discussed, is the Sentinelese community. There's only an estimated 150 of them, and the big thing is they have no immunity to common diseases, stuff we wouldn't even think twice about. For them, exposure could wipe out their entire population. It's really sobering when you think about how vulnerable they are to any outside contact.
It makes you realize we're walking around with germs that could be deadly to them.
Exactly. And every time there's been any interaction with the outside world, they've been hostile. They make it clear they want to be left alone. And there's that tragic case of John Allen Chow, the American missionary who was killed by the Sentinelese in 2018. He tried to make contact illegally, and it ended tragically. It's a stark reminder of the dangers and how determined they are to remain isolated.
They're sending a clear message, and it's not hard to understand why. Okay, let's circle back to Polyakov for a minute. We know he calls himself a danger tourist. What else do we know about him? About why he might take such a huge risk? Like, what would drive someone to do that, even with all the warnings?
Well, he's got a history of traveling to risky places. Like, he's been to Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, places like that. It suggests a pattern of seeking out these unconventional, dangerous experiences, fits with the whole danger tourist label. And like we've been saying, what he did has sparked a bigger conversation about the ethics of this type of travel, especially when it involves isolated, vulnerable communities.
Yeah, and it's not just casual conversation. I saw a quote from Caroline Pierce at Survival International. She called his actions reckless and alarming. That's a pretty serious statement.
Definitely. A lot of organizations that work to protect indigenous communities, they see this as more than just breaking the law. It's deeply disrespectful and potentially very harmful. They're really concerned about this kind of intrusion.
Okay, so what's been the official response to all this? We know India acted quickly.
They did. The Andaman and Nicobar police, led by Chief H.G.S. Dhaliwal, have been questioning Polyakov, trying to figure out exactly why he did it. They'll be looking into whether he had any other motives beyond filming, whether anyone helped him get to the island. Tribal welfare officials also checked out North Sentinel Island on April 3rd, 2025, just to make sure he didn't leave anything behind that could be dangerous.
And what about the U.S. government? They must know an American citizen is being held in India.
Oh yeah, the U.S. State Department acknowledged Polyakov's detention, but they've been pretty quiet about it, saying they're monitoring the situation. That's pretty standard for these kinds of situations, especially when there are legal proceedings going on in another country. They're staying neutral for now.
Okay, so this whole thing really drives home the point that pushing boundaries can be dangerous, especially when those boundaries are there to protect people. And that brings us to a really important part for you, the listener. What are the key takeaways here, especially if you're thinking about traveling to India? If you're planning a trip, this case really emphasizes the need to.
Think about the consequences. Seriously, this is a wake-up call. Number one, Know the rules and follow them. I mean, really familiarize yourself with all the local laws and regulations. This is super important for restricted zones like North Sentinel Island, but it goes for military areas, border zones, all of it. Check those travel advisories, both from the Indian government and the U.S. State Department, specifically their India page. Do it before you even start packing your bags.
That seems obvious, but clearly, some people need the reminder. And for specific places, like the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, are there any special requirements travelers need to know about?
Yep. Sometimes you need permits to visit certain areas in India, including parts of the Andamans. You have to go through the official channels, like the Foreigners Regional Registration Office, to get those permits. And do it well in advance. Don't wait till the last minute. You can't just show up and expect to get in.
Good to know. What about something that might seem smaller, like taking pictures? Are there rules about that?
You bet. Be super careful about taking photos in sensitive spots like military sites or some tribal areas where it could be seen as disrespectful or intrusive. You could get detained or have your camera confiscated. When in doubt, just don't take the picture.
Smart advice. So, beyond the legal stuff, any other tips for U.S. citizens planning to go to India?
Connecting with the U.S. Embassy is always a good move. Sign up for the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, or STEP, through the State Department's website. That way, you'll get important safety alerts, and it makes it easier for the embassy to help you if there's an emergency. And keep the U.S. Embassy in New Delhi's number handy. It's +91 11 2419 800. Have a plan. Know what to do if you need help, whether you get detained, have a medical issue, anything unexpected.
It's like that saying, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Exactly.
Okay, what about health and safety once you're there?
Your health comes first. Look at the CDC guidelines, the Centers for Disease Control, for recommended vaccinations, things like typhoid and hepatitis A. Make sure you've got any prescription meds you need and a basic first aid kit. Stay informed about any local risks, whether it's political stuff, weather events like monsoons, anything that could affect your safety. Check the news and the local weather reports regularly.
And it's not just about physical safety, right? There's a whole cultural aspect to responsible travel.
Absolutely. Respect those cultural and natural boundaries. Like we've been talking about with North Sentinel Island, don't visit indigenous communities without permission. It's not just about staying out of trouble, it's about respecting their autonomy and their well-being. In general, be mindful of cultural etiquette. Dress modestly in conservative areas or at religious sites, and just be respectful in public. It's about blending in, showing that you're considerate of local customs and traditions.
Little things can make a big difference.
They really do.
What about general travel tips for getting around India?
Be smart about it. Keep copies of your passport and visa separate from the originals, and make sure you've applied for your Indian visa online through the official website well before you leave. When it comes to transportation, especially in remote areas or places that aren't touristy, stick with licensed operators or government-approved services. Don't take risks with unofficial or unregulated transport like that boat Polyakov used. And watch out for tourist scams, especially in crowded places. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Sound advice. And for people who are looking for adventure, like Polyakov was, what's the responsible way to go about it?
If you want adventure, find it through legitimate and responsible channels. If you're into trekking in the Himalayas, for example, book with a reputable tour operator. Don't push your limits into illegal stuff or trespass in restricted areas. And this is especially important these days. Be careful what you post online, especially anything from or about those off-limits places. Sharing that stuff can get you in legal trouble and might encourage other people to do risky things too. Think before you post.
So true, online behavior matters. What about if you need help right away in an emergency?
Know the local emergency numbers. In India, it's 100 for the police.
Yeah.
Specifically in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, you'd contact the police in Port Blair. Keep that information handy.
And one last thing, something we always suggest, but it's even more important when you're traveling somewhere like India, I think.
Travel insurance. Get it. Make sure it covers medical emergencies, legal help, trip disruptions, the works. You never know what might happen. And good insurance can really save you a lot of trouble and expense.
It's worth it for peace of mind. So, bringing it back to Polyakov and what happened, it's a cautionary tale. It shows how important it is to be a responsible traveler and what can happen if you ignore the rules and those boundaries that are there to protect people.
Yeah, he didn't just put himself at risk, he could have exposed a very vulnerable community to harm. And now he's facing serious legal consequences. It really shows that our desire to experience unique things should never come at the cost of other people's safety and autonomy.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the message for you listening is clear. Respect those local laws, especially the ones that are there to protect isolated communities. Know what the penalties are if you break those laws, and always, always prioritize responsible and ethical exploration when you travel. Be adventurous, but be smart about it.
It makes you think, though. With more and more people wanting these unique, extreme travel experiences and social media pushing that even further, how do we balance that with our responsibility to protect vulnerable cultures and environments? Is what Polyakov did a one-off, or is it a sign of a bigger problem where the urge to share things online right now overrides thinking about the consequences? It's a question worth pondering the next time you feel that pull to explore those uncharted corners of the world.
Food for thought, for sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Stay safe, travel smart, and we'll see you next time.
See you then.